when it comes down to people putting their money in a place, retirement plans, everybody knows what the 401k is. But here's the thing. Most people don't know that there's advantages and disadvantages, but what's often overlooked is the disadvantages. Now, of course, some people say, well, Joe, what options do I have? Is there another option? We're gonna talk about that here real quick. But I gotta say this. When it comes down to your money, is there one size fits all? Never one size fits all. But is there better options for most people? 100%. And then is there things that you just didn't know about at one point? Absolutely. So I remember when I personally had a 401k and I had no idea how money worked. And I remember me and my wife at 26 years old, we decided that we're going to start a car dealership. And by the time we turned 27 years old, we lost over $100,000. Now, why the 401k? During that time frame, I pulled money from my retirement plan, but I was not educated on the fact that if I pull money from this particular plan that, I'm gonna pay taxes and an early withdrawal, which for me just didn't make sense. Like, wait a second, this is my money. Why do I gotta pay taxes? Why do I have the early withdrawal? Okay, so when can I remember asking, when can I take out my money? And it was like, well, at 59 plus. Like, wait, I gotta be 59 years old to take out the money I've been saving. Okay, all right, that doesn't make sense, but you're gonna penalize me for that too as well? Okay, great. I gotta defer my taxes. Okay, what if I don't take my taxes out? What is my taxes gonna be? These are all the questions I used to ask. What's my taxes gonna be? They told me, well, your taxes are gonna be, we don't know, because we don't know what the tax is gonna be. And I said, man, this is crazy. And I started looking for other assets. And I remember after losing all the money and now making that money back in different businesses, being introduced to an alternative that we'll talk about, that I literally could have lost that money in my business, which I ended up doing. But at the same time, I've actually would have made the money in just interest by pulling it from the right place. It would have been a better, efficient retirement plan for me for a long-term saving. But before we go too deep into that, let's talk about some of the things about the 401k that most people don't think about when they decide to invest for the retirement. Now, guarantees. There's no guarantees when you get a 401k. Meaning, even if this isn't a pension, there's things that doesn't guarantee you in the pension either. But your employer, you are responsible, not your employer, for your retirement when they say guarantees. So whether the market's up, down, no matter how good your company's doing, guess what? If your 401k is tied directly to the market, like S&P 500, or many other indexes or many different ways, then guess what? You could be losing money and you're not guaranteed to retire off that 401k no matter how much money you put in there. So there's no guarantees in that aspect. Contribution limits. There is actual contribution limits in the 401k, much higher than an IRA, but there is contribution limits. Pay taxes on retirement. This is a big one. People don't actually understand. They're like, look, I can defer. And by the way, I know a lot of people who are contractors. You're contractors. You're like, you know what? I need to get me a retirement plan so I can defer the taxes, so I can lower. And I'm not giving tax advice, obviously. And by the way, this is also not educational advice. You got to see a professional, myself, other people who's professionals. So take this as education. But at the same time, I know people like to, of course, be able to take those deductions with their taxes and lower their income. But you don't know what the tax is going to be. That's the scary part. When you say pay taxes on retirement, well, right now, what if my taxes are 25%? But then, what if 30 years from now, the taxes are 45%? You don't lock in a tax rate. You got to pay the taxes whenever that is. So you got to pay taxes. Market losses. This goes down to the guaranteed part. You lose money in 401ks. A lot of people will lose money. I remember back in 2008 when the market happened, and people lost a lot of money. My dad, he's a broker in real estate. He's big into real estate, but I know he had some money in the market. And I literally remember him saying he would never ever trust the stock market ever again. He will never trust paper assets. If he can't walk inside of that asset, he'll never trust it because he got did so bad in the market. And I don't know if you guys remember, but when that happened, a lot of people lost a lot of money. There was cars going on sales, foreclosures, many different things. But if you had a 401k, imagine being about to retire. Imagine just being a year from retirement, you're retired, or imagine you retire and your money was still in a 401k, and especially if it was something aggressive. And just imagine at that point, boom, you lose all your money. Or 40% for most people, 30, 40%. Now, people don't always look at it like, oh, 30-40% is a lot, but maybe I'll have time to gain it back. People don't look at, it's not just what you gain back. You're not just looking at the percentage of loss. You're looking at the time it took you to get there. So if you literally lost 40% and you had been saving up for retirement for 40 years, you lost like 15 years of your life. That's a big deal. Age rules, there's age rules to it. No additional death benefit, meaning, your 401k is your retirement product, but if you pass away, your family gets, that, and that's it. So this money could be in other assets like life insurance that can actually grow for them and balloon in value when they pass away. Then you got living benefits. There's no living benefits to the 401k. You leave your job, you don't have workman's comp, you don't have certain benefits with that job. You get ill, something happens, you get in a bad car accident, you can't perform 2 out of the 6 basic living activities. Guess what? You don't have that benefit like some other assets do. Now, those are some of the things that most people don't realize in the 401k because we're not educated on how the 401k works. You get a job, they put you to sign your paperwork when you're onboarding to your employer, and then guess what? They're like, well, sign here, sign here. You want to know more about this? Call the company. That's typically how it goes. Now, what option is better? The option that is better for most people, this is an opinion of mine, but we can look at numbers, look at facts, but let's look at some of these benefits. But option that's better for most people, in my opinion, the Index Universal Life, which is a life insurance policy. And this bad boy, you can access the money in there anytime, tax-free. Meaning, you ever, in my case, need to pull money out. And I'm like, man, I gotta take a penalty and I gotta pay tax on this money. And this, you can pull that money out, don't pay a penalty, don't pay tax on that money. That's a big deal. And most people, the first thing they're gonna do, they're gonna go to the retirement accounts, they're gonna go to anything in their savings that they can get to get money when things happen. So, being able to pull out tax-free is a big deal. Tax-free retirement, that sells itself. Tax-free retirement literally means that you can retire, let's say at 50 years old, and you have $2, $3, $4 million. Let's say $4 million. And at $4 million, let's say you owe taxes on that in another type of account. Maybe you end off with 2.7. Well, in this case, if you have that same exact amount there, at $4 million, you would literally still have $4 million. You didn't have to pay the taxes on it. It's crazy. So, principal protection, your money's protected while it's growing, and it's protected while you're in retirement. Uninterrupted growth, that's part of that. Meaning, imagine taking a staircase that only goes up. A staircase that only goes up, that's the uninterrupted growth. It doesn't do this. It doesn't go down and up, down and up. It only goes boop, boop, boop. So, no age rules. You can use this money whenever. Me, I was 26 years old. I needed to use the money I had. Money there, along with some other things. I had money there. I said, man, shoot, I gotta use it. There's probably some people like you. He's like, man, I've used my 401k before, or I need to use it. And I used it, and I, was at 59 and a half, so I had to take early withdrawal penalties. No age rules there. Living benefits, something happens to you, and you have an IUL policy, you can then activate a living benefit, and it can either give you a monthly check if need be until you recover, or it can give you a massive lump sum to be able to take care of you, to recovery, or of course, God forbid, till you pass away if you have some type of terminal illness. And then you got additional death benefits. Essentially, the additional death benefits has to do with being able to have coverage attached to the policy, attached to the index crediting strategy that's inside the policy, so you can get as much death benefit as you need. At the same time, it's not going to sacrifice how much you need for retirement, so that's a big deal. Now, for you, you may say, well, Joe, this just makes sense because there's so many different advantages over here, and I don't like the list of disadvantages. That may be for you. I wanted to educate you today. I want to spend the time to really educate you on the different types, the different type of policy, and on the most popular investment for people who's employed, the 401k, and show you some things that maybe you was not explained to.